What's up, Table Rock Fishing Intel Pro members? Again, thanks for being Table Rock Fishing Intel Pro members. Do appreciate you guys supporting our work and helping us to do what we do to bring you more information about fishing Table Rock Lake. It is Thursday, September 14th. Had kind of a crazy week this week, so we're getting the report out late. Sorry about that. But we did get out in time for the weekend. As far as the bite is concerned, it is getting a little bit tougher. We've had a pretty massive cool down on water temperature in the last 10 to 15 days. So I really think that's affecting the fish more than anything else right now. As far as our lake level, we're at 913.02, so 4 feet below normal summer pool. Not a lot of water coming in. Not going to see a lot of water being moved. You know, water, it's a little bit cooler, so the core's not running quite as much, but they are still running water every day to meet electrical needs. And we don't have a lot of rain in the forecast. Looks like maybe next week we've got a shot at some rain towards the end of the week, but you know, it's 30-40% at this point, which probably means 0 when we get to it. Water temperature, kind of the biggest story right now. We're down around 80 degrees. Pretty much all over the lake, we're around 80 degrees. Water is cooling down with these cooler nights. And you know, if you think about it, fish are cold-blooded critters. So if the water temperature is cold, their metabolism slows, they're not going to be as active, they're not going to be feeding as much until they acclimate to it and start feeding like they normally would. So it has made the bite a little bit tougher than it's been, you know, maybe 10, 12 days ago when the water was up around the 90s and the fish seemed to be a lot more active when it was warm, especially early and late in the day. But we are still catching fish. The bite has been a little bit tougher, but we got some different things we're doing to put fish in the boat. The best way to know, you guys are Table Rock Fishing Intel Pro members. Use that pro membership to get your information before you go to the lake and know before you go. But if you're coming down, going to fish the lower end of the lake, a couple of bites working on the lower end. You know, all over the lake right now, the most consistent bite has been on a drop shot rig. That will probably change here over the next few weeks, but right now we're still catching them on a drop shot with a shad shape or a cut tail, UV drop shot worm, and the chompers drop shot worm. Most of those fish have been coming off of gravel points and gravel flats, gravel humps, that sort of thing, anywhere from 22 to 32 feet deep like we normally catch them. But I will tell you, the last 2 trips I've had out, that gravel bite has been less effective than going to the trees. So we have been catching them out of the trees again, which kind of makes sense. They tend to do this when the water cools, they move around a little bit, and you'll find these fish that are suspended in the treetops be a little bit more active than the ones that are out there on the gravel. The ones on the gravel tend to roam a lot more, so the treetop bite has been better, 20 to 30 feet deep, over top of whatever. It doesn't really matter the overall depth, as long as that tree is somewhere around that 20 to 30 feet deep. You will find some spots out there. A few of them on docks, a few of them on dock cables. That bite has been short-lived of late just because, you know, we've had bluebird skies, bright sun every day. If you hit the ends of those docks early or late when there's shade coming off the end of the dock, you'll find a few more fish out there on the cables. But once the sun gets up, they suck up under the dock and they get a lot harder to catch. The other bites that are working down by the dam, we are still catching them dragging. The dragging bite's not been as good as at the dam as it has been, you know, up the rivers or up Long Creek. But we're catching them on the Pee Wee HD football jig, the Pee Wee HD spider, catching a few on a shaky head, catching a few on the heavy cover football jig. Still catching some on the Carolina rig, but it seems like that bite's not as good as it was 2 weeks ago. And I'm not exactly sure why that is. Probably should downsize. Instead of using a full-size brush hog, probably should switch to like a baby brush hog or maybe a beaver or something like that. Might be able to get a few more bites doing that on a Carolina rig. Other than that, the topwater bite down there has been incredibly hit or miss. It's probably the worst topwater bite on the lake, but we have been catching a few on a topwater, primarily on a plopper or a shower blows. Pretty tight to the bank, and throwing it pretty much parallel to the bank has been better than, you know, throwing at trees and stuff like that like we do in the spring. It's been more of a find those ledgy banks, find those bluff type banks, get up tight against them in parallel. But again, you're going to cover a lot of water for a handful of bites. It's not been a great bite of late. Go to the mid-lake area. Mid-lake is a little bit better on the drop shot rig or in the drop shot bite. Again, it seems like they're transitioning out of those off of the flats to the trees. There's still fish on flats. We caught several fish on flats on, I guess it was Friday or Saturday, I don't remember which. Caught several fish out there on the flats, but they are scattered. They're not grouped up as well, and the bite was definitely better in the trees where you had groups of fish. So look for those fish in trees, look for those fish on the ends of docks. The same baits are working, the shad shape cut tail, UV, chompers, drop shot worm. All of them are working. Color hasn't really seemed to make that big of a difference as far as the different colors of worm. I'm doing well with plum, I'm doing well with brown purple laminate on the worms, and doing well with natural shad on the shad shape. So keep that in mind. Dragging bite is a little bit better in the mid-lake area than it is down by the dam. Again, with a Pee Wee HD football jig, Pee Wee HD spider, heavy cover football jig, some on a shaky head, but you're going to need to use a heavier shaky head, you know, like a 3/8 ounce shaky head to get it out there a little bit deeper. Most of these fish have been in that 18 to 25, even 30 foot range where we're dragging. Earlier and late, they'll be up shallower, but they're not nearly that shallow once the sun gets up. So we've been out moving out deeper progressively as the day goes on. And that bite's been pretty good. The big worm bite, or even just a Texas rig worm in some of the brush piles, continues to be pretty good up there. We caught a few of them, I guess last Wednesday or Thursday, throwing a big worm into the brush piles. Most of the brush I'm catching, again, I'm catching them out of deeper brush than a lot of guys are. Some guys are catching them up shallow. Most of mine are coming 12 to 20 foot deep brush piles and working it really slow through those brush piles. That's how I'm getting bit on a big worm. And then I've got a little deal that we kind of stumbled across over the weekend. Throwing a little swim bait, the little Kitech 2.8 on those same fish that we're catching out of the treetops with a drop shot rig, using the forward facing sonar. See some fish or some shad out in front of me, you know, maybe down 10, 15 foot, not actually down in the trees, ones that you can't really get over top of and drop on. I've been throwing a little swim bait, and I've been able to pick off a few, and actually some of them have been some better largemouth that have been up a little bit shallower, like 10 or 15 foot down. Throwing that little swim bait and just swimming it through, getting it to the shad and killing it, and getting bites doing that. Do the same thing with a spoon or the LS spin, but it seems like they like that subtle presentation a little bit better right now with the small swim bait versus the LS spin or the spoon. Top water bite in the mid-lake, again, it's very hit or miss. This cooler water temperature has really slowed things down. I think the fish will adjust to it, and things will get better as we get further and further into September and into October. We'll start to see that shallow bite and that top water bite turn on. Go up in the James. I did spend a day up the James last week. Best bite we had up there was dragging by far. Gravel and rock makes points, especially those ones that have a pretty significant roll off where you go from like 10 or 15 foot and drops down to 20 or 25. Pee Wee HD football jig, Pee Wee HD spider, the regular heavy cover football jig. We did catch them pretty good on a shaky head with a Magnum finesse worm up there as well, so keep that in mind. Those fish are starting to bite out there on those roll-offs. The bite's actually a little bit better later in the day than it is first thing in the morning. The top water bite up there with a buzzbait or a plopper, I would probably say in the rivers like James, Kings, and even up Long Creek, first thing in the morning, that bite's probably, if you want to go through a top water, those are the areas I would target, especially back in the creeks a little bit. Not all the way to the very back, mostly on those channel swings about midway back. You go in like Ants Creek or Woolly or Piney and hit those channel bends about halfway to 3/4 of the way back. Since we haven't had any rain, we don't have any fresh water coming in, those fish are not all the way to the back. Most of them have been about half to 3/4 of the way back. Parallel them, get up tight to the bank, throw a buzzbait, throw a plopper, throw a shower blow, something like that. We have been picking off a few better fish doing that as well in the James. So keep that in mind too if you're going to go up the James. Go up the White. Was up the White yesterday. Fish from Baxter all the way almost to Big M. We drop shotted gravel early. Like I said, the bite was okay. We'd catch one here, one there, but we never had anything super consistent. So we switched up and went to the trees. The bite in the trees was definitely more consistent, but we catch 2 or 3 out of a tree, and there might be 10 or 12 fish in that tree, but we can only get 2, 3, sometimes only one of those fish to commit and actually bite. So you had to move around a lot. You had to have a lot of trees, and that's where that swim bait deal I was talking about down in the mid-lake actually came into play too, because you will see on your forward-facing sonar, if you scan around, you'll see these little pods of shad, and you'll see a couple of fish underneath them. And that's where I've been throwing that Kitech 2.8 in threadfin and just letting it fall, reel it up to them, and kill it. And I was able to pick up a couple doing that. So keep that in mind as well. The drop shot bite's been good. The dragging bite has been good up there as well. Basically, again, looking for roll-offs, looking for drops. It doesn't have to be a huge drop. 5-foot, 10-foot drop is great. But even a 2 or 3 foot drop off of gravel or gravel and rock mix has been holding a few fish with the Pee Wee HD football, Pee Wee HD spider, heavy cover football jig. Again, Carolina rig bite has not been as good. I probably just need to start putting a smaller profile bait on there. I think I'll probably get more bites doing that. But dragging has been good. Topwater bite has been better up the Kings, but I did talk to a buddy of mine who lives up in Shell Knob, and over the weekend he had an unbelievable topwater day, or topwater morning. It pulled back in the Big Creek, was hitting a couple of coves with a basically drop shot in trees and kind of hanging out, and he noticed some stuff splashing back in the cove, so he ran back in there. And he said he found a group of fish that had some shad pinned up in the back of a cove, and it was almost every cast for a solid 30 minutes. You might stumble on that. If you do find that, there has been a good topwater bite there, but the more consistent buzzbait, whopper plopper, shower blow bite has been up the river, up the Kings, on the ends of those channel bends, basically paralleling. You're not really going to see the fish bust. You just got to cover water catching fish doing that. Big worm bite up the Kings has been hit or miss as well. It's, they're still fishing those shallower brush piles, 15 to 20 foot deep, but it's not been as consistent, and nothing's been as consistent since we've had this water cool down. Things are going to turn around. Things are going to get better. We'll be talking about throwing a buzzbait a little bit more, chatterbait, all that sort of stuff is going to start happening as this water cools down, and as these fish get acclimated to this cool down, probably over the next 2 to 3 weeks. Guys, we're halfway through September. Boat traffic's been awesome. There's hardly been anybody other than fishermen on the water. Even on the weekends, it's not been that bad. But the bite's good. The bite should be getting better as these fish, again, get used to this cooler water. They're going to start moving shallow. They're going to start feeding. The shad are going to start moving up. We'll probably get another bluegill spawn when we have the next full moon come through. So there'll be a lot of things going in our favor coming up over the next 2 to 3 weeks, as far as catching a lot of fish and having some of the more fun fishing rather than staring at your electronics. Best way to know you guys are Table Rock Fishing Intel members, use that pro membership and stay on top of it. We got a lot of guys out there doing daily reports. We got weekly reports. We got fishing forecasts. We got all those things that will help you catch more fish when you go to Table Rock Lake. So use your Table Rock Fishing Intel membership. But if you're coming down and want to hire a guide, give me a call. It's Focus Fishing Guide Service. You can reach me at 417-860-4743 or hit my website, focusfishing.com, where you can either book online or just shoot me an email. Either way, I get back to you as soon as I can. Thanks for being Table Rock Fishing Intel Pro members. Thanks for watching the video. Can't wait to hear from you. We'll see you on the water.